How are you doing this week, Maya?
Um, oh, I don't have boobs yet.
I know, I'm really pissed about it too. So let's talk about what's gone on the blog this week since we last talked. Fill us in on what's gone on since we last spoke.
Well, there was I had a friend of a friend contact me and say that he was attacked in Broad Ripple, out at a bar, and
Where's Broad Ripple for our national listeners?
yes, Broad Ripple, Indiana. It's the north side of north side of Indianapolis, and it's kind of the bar scene. It's a small strip. It's got a whole bunch of bars, and it's the nightlife place of Central Indiana because downtown Indianapolis is just garbage. But that's the night place. That's where the younger crowd goes. That's where you go to get laid, or just really drunk. But it's a lot of college kids live up there. It's a really neat little place. But yeah,
So what happened?
well, I'm not going to reiterate the entire thing, but check out the blog post. But you know, transitioning is kind of it's hard to talk about sometimes in the correct context. But this gentleman, is out and not, necessarily fully presenting, but from knowing the person for a little while and seeing, how he presents himself, it's one of those things where it's kind of an in between thing for some people. It'd be, they wouldn't necessarily know who they're, what gender the person they're dealing with, is. And so there was a couple guys that I guess were just assholes and, accosted him when he was using the restroom and, and then ended up following him out of the bar later and attacking him before they got to their car. So, it's they didn't put him in the hospital. It was schoolyard bully stuff. But it's not acceptable. And they, yelling homophobic and transphobic slurs and everything else. It's one of those things where you don't really expect that out of a place like Broad Ripple that's decently open. It's not horrible, but it's not that great either. But it's just one of those things where it's kind of shocking, and it's at home. I mean, I read about stuff in California, New York, all over the place in these big cities, and you hear about these horrible attacks, and these people go around and they go out of their way and they do things they'd never normally do just to attack somebody that's trans, and it's.
Why do you think that is? What in your opinion is the motivation for somebody to do that?
It's the bully mentality, and it's what people have. We live in a whole society that if you don't fit in, if you're not normal, we're going to attack you. And it's a lot of different cultures. I mean, you've got the gay and the lesbian culture, which still have problems with it. It's not necessarily as bad because it's a little bit more mainstream. It's a little bit more pushed out there, and it's very taboo to do that. It used to be you make fun of the fat kid. Not so much anymore. I mean, there's still the bullies and still the assholes out there, but it's not as bad as it once was. With the trans community, because it's not maybe necessarily large in numbers, but it's a very large, diverse community, it's very hard for culture to even begin to understand what the trans community is about, the genderqueer and everything else, that they don't get it. Most people don't want to put enough thought into it to get it. I mean, some people still think you can get AIDS from, like, a countertop. So it's one of those things where just people are bullies and they get these little group mentalities and they just want to lash out and attack somebody just out of pure ignorance.
You mentioned something genderqueer. What is that?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of terms that can be kind of under the trans banner. You've got intersex, genderqueer, and all these others. Genderqueer is basically saying you're queer when it comes to your gender. I mean, the base root of both the words. It's you don't buy into the gender binary. You're not a man, you're not a woman necessarily, and you can be a man or a woman and still be genderqueer technically, and it's just about not buying into any of society's rules when it comes to gender whatsoever. It doesn't have to include any kind of physical changes or anything like that. It's just literally what it means. I mean, there's another term, gender fluidity. That's a little bit along the lines of genderqueer, where you're kind of floating around and you can kind of go back and forth and in between. There's bigender, which means you have two genders. One day you wake up and you're in kind of male mode or macho mode, and the next day you're in feminine mode. So it's a very, very, I guess I want to say, intellectually deep community where it really questions everything about the human psyche and how we interact with society.
Are we outside of the community expected to know and follow all of this? I mean, it's kind of difficult. And I read an article, I think it was in the New York Times, about how they want to change LGBT to LGBTQIA. I mean, like, add a bunch of different letters to it. And I think people who are not, like, I'll be honest with you, the world is moving into community-based groups, and my communities are, you know, the libertarian community, obviously. You know, I have my friends in the local community that I talk to. I follow a lot of marketing stuff. I follow a lot of Christian stuff. Like, that's the stuff that I follow. I don't necessarily follow what's going on in the LGBT community. It doesn't mean I'm not a supporter. It doesn't, you know, obviously by doing this podcast, I want to support you and educate people on what's going on, but I don't have the mental RAM to follow a lot of these different kind of communities and changes. I certainly don't want to offend people. I mean, so how does someone like myself make sure that I don't offend, that I don't do anything to hurt anybody's feelings? You know, what's the, like I've said before, I'm a path of least resistance guy.
There's different schools of thought, and everybody's different. The way I view it is, from a libertarian standpoint, is that it's not about knowing everything that's going on, knowing all these terms. It's about understanding and being okay with the idea and accepting of the idea that other people, that gender isn't binary anymore. It's not black and white. You just need to understand the simple fact that just because you were assigned a gender at birth doesn't mean that's what your gender is or what your gender identity is. It's understanding it. This is more of a science thing, a sociology thing. It's not community. It's not this. It's not quabbling back and forth over, you know, these rights or those rights. It's simple, basic understanding that things aren't as simple as they seem. They're not as simple as you've been told your entire life. It's not that way. I mean, it's like, oh my God, a woman's out of the kitchen. How are people ever going to learn about women's rights and that they are people too? What about those blacks? Oh, they're people too. No, their craniums are different or whatever. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it's the whole idea of changing the way society perceives a certain topic. So it's, you know, the LGBT thing. I mean, if just to be honest, I'd rather see it just be LGB, and the T can go and, you know, they can add on T and everything else. I don't know how we'd spell that out. You know, there's trans, there's transsexual, transgender, there's genderqueer, dual. Bigender, intersex. Intersex is more of a medical term.
All right, so we've got a TITT. We need an E and an S.
It is. Oh, that's horrible. I mean, then there's twin spirit. That's more of a Native American thing. But it's very big. But it really brings out the idea that this world and our culture is a lot bigger than we try to make it. We try to simplify everything down. I mean,
yeah, but don't you see the irony in a group that says, please don't label us, coming up with 1.5 million different labels?
It's not one group having all the different labels. It's different people saying, I am not this, I am not that. I mean, labels, I had a blog post where I have trouble with labels, and I've had some very great feedback, especially on Reddit, in the voluntarism page, and also on the libertarian page, and the anarchist page. Subreddits, sorry, not pages, subreddits. But it's laying out, it's where labels are used by the people. But people use labels for themselves to provide context. They're not really meant for other people to use. So it
yeah, but I call bullshit, because what was the Native American spirit? What was that?
Twin spirit.
All right, twin spirit. That is born out of somebody's need to define themselves and who they are, not just for themselves, but for other people, and also to distance themselves from people that they may not associate with. I mean, it's still a social construct, whether you want to call it a false construct of society or not, Miah.
No, and it's one thing where I'd rather not use labels when I don't need to, but things need context. I mean, when we talk, we're libertarians. We run into the same damn shitty arguments all the time, and then especially in the anarchist community, because we've got left libertarians, right libertarians, conservative libertarians. That's an oxymoron that doesn't exist, but
it's very much like what you're talking about, the trans community. I'm walking somebody through the libertarian community right now at work and explaining everything to them, and they are lost. They're like, "Is reason Cato?" Where it's. I don't understand what a minarchist is. How is a minarchist different from an anarcho-capitalist? Why don't you guys just follow the Constitution and become Republicans? And it just, the labels within our own community, it's very diverse and confusing.
Well, it's, okay, well, because I'm still decently new to this whole trans thing, I'll use the example of how I use labels when it comes to politics. If I'm talking to a higher intellectual crowd that's in politics, I usually define myself as a voluntarist because they know what the hell that word means. They know what for the most part, what context I'm coming from. So when we have arguments, I don't have to explain my position in such full length that it helps move things along. When I'm talking to people that are somewhat in politics, I say I'm an anarchist because they somewhat understand that term. But when I'm talking to the average, person, or I'm talking to just anybody, I say I'm a libertarian. And it all kinds of, it helps me move along the conversation. It helps establish my viewpoint to a degree, and it just moves things along. So, say when I'm using, the trans term, for most people, if the subject or the conversation requires that anything about my personhood needs to be described a little bit when it comes to maybe, hell, on Facebook, we're joking around talking about, like, sex or something. Well, I'm going to come from a little bit different perspective. So I'm going to say, as a trans woman, so-and-so.
And a virgin.
No. I'm a sexual deviant. But it's I can use different terms for different things. I mean, when I'm talking to people that are in the trans community, I'm going to use more or less a gender queer type label. And it's all to provide context so we know where we're coming from. To the average Joe, to just nobody, I don't give a shit how they label me, and I'm not going to use labels in front of them. It's just who I am for friends, if they're curious or whatever.
So a lot of these labels are more for shorthand when you're talking within the community as opposed to how the rest of the world defines or labels you.
Right. And, I mean, it comes down, I mean, yeah. So it comes down to, I mean, most of communication, how we communicate is derived around procreation. I mean, picking up chicks, picking up dudes, whatever. I mean, that's think about it. Really think about it.
Or picking up chick dudes.
Yeah, I might just have to remove one of your testicles for using that. That was chick. Oh, I'm going to slap the shit out of you. Okay, everybody, I'm going to hurt Mr. Spangle shortly.
Yeah, I was doing my Rush Limbaugh impression. Did you hear what he had said this week?
No.
Look it up. That'll make you happy.
No, I don't. Half the terminology we use, the reason why we have certain terms and this and that is to pick up the, a mate. Another person, maybe a fun bag.
A what?
I'm not going to elaborate on that term. If I want to go out and I want to go to a bar, or I want to go try to pick up somebody, I wouldn't do that to you, Emily.
She has to have approval.
Yes, no. If I'm to bring anybody else home, she has to strictly approve of them. So it's basically I'm going to let her go pick people up because it's very similar tastes. We can get into that another time. but it's I'm gonna use depending.
She looks horrified, by the way.
Oh yeah no. What I've been doing to poor Emily and her online persona, since she doesn't have one or a presence, I've been what did you call her earlier?
A sex symbol, libertarian sex symbol, Rachel Maddow.
Oh. God. No, well, I'd rather have Emily out there than that stupid little blonde-headed chick on YouTube. I don't need to go there on this. That's
well, on Miah's Facebook page, he took a photo of Emily making him, I don't know, something, and she was wearing heels and a short black dress, and basically every every libertarian in Indianapolis is beating their meat to Maya's Facebook page.
Well, she's wearing a very, very tight-fitting, very attractive, I love the dress, I wish I could wear it, and very high heels. And I come home, and I look over the kitchen, and she's making me dinner wearing this. And it's like she's ready to go on a night on the town and just blow people away. And I had to take a picture of it. And I share it, and it gets just, oh my God, it gets so many comments.
My favorite was, you could put a glass on that ass.
And you could have, too. And it would have, I mean, you could have put like a milk jug on there, and it wouldn't have gone anywhere.
No, come on now. That's a little rude.
Okay, half a gallon milk jug. So it's funny. Like, she just wrote a blog post for me. I gave her an assignment, and because she's still my secretary at this point. And
you really should give out your phone number so people can call and hear your voicemail message. My wife lost it when she heard it.
317-938-2661. I don't care if you call. Leave me a message. But she
Thank God nobody's listening.
Yeah, I know, right? I'll know if anybody listens if they call me. But she wrote me a blog post kind of talking about my transition so far from her perspective. And she elaborated very deeply but cut all that out, and she'll be putting that in another post I'm going to force her to write. But it was interesting reading it because I didn't, being removed from looking at myself, outside of the box, seeing her point of view from it was a very interesting perspective. And I'm guessing that's kind of the way a lot of people felt, my insanity in between the on and off the meds. So that was
that was great.
Oh, yeah.
Let me walk you through something. You want to know why Maya and I are close? 36 hours to Vegas in an RV and 36 hours back to Vegas in an RV nonstop. And she was going off hormones that were not doctor approved. And you lost your favorite pair of sunglasses because I made a harmless joke in Nevada, and you flung your sunglasses at me and they went out the window. Thank God they didn't hit me in the eye and blind me.
Well, that was towards the end, and both you and Rupert were just on me about driving. I'm like, you guys were losing. Neither of you could shut up about me driving.
Because you're the worst effing driver on the planet.
Okay, I'm a very, very good driver. It's just not to anybody else's perspective. They all feel like they're going to die. And we were going through the mountains, going down the mountains.
You drive what kind of car? Explain your car that you drive regularly.
Nissan Sentra SER Spec V.
So it's set up to be like a little racing car. She was driving the RV like the Nissan. It was terrifying. through Nevada, around Lake Mead with all these giant mountains. I thought we were going to die. Rupert was shitting his pants.
Let's just say that one RV ride was probably scarier than his entire 3 times on Survivor. He would probably agree with me on that. But no, that trip we got very close. 36 hours there. Then that was just a horrible convention and a horrible week.
I couldn't sleep because I was on the couch, and I would just kick the chair to make sure that Maya was still awake. And I would wake up in the middle of the night, and Skrillex would be playing. I'll splice in a little clip of this song. Yeah, so imagine you wake up to that song in the middle of the night and you hear, "Fuck you, transmission! Fuck you, fucking transmission! Goddamn piece of shit!"
That RV was a piece of shit. I mean, the refrigerator stopped working after I put $500 of food in it. The AC wouldn't work. It was dying. I mean, we almost didn't make it back. And so that was... And I'm in the middle of the night driving through Texas, and I have satellite radio that is losing signal constantly. What else am I supposed to do except cuss out everything?
All right, any final words on labels?
It's an interesting thing. It all depends on how we decide to use them, but I do think things need defining. I mean, I'm I like science. I'm kind of into scientific stuff. I'm really into animals, and is there
Gross.
I'm not into bestiality. Animals, the animal kingdom, everything, bugs. I mean, it's like asking, do we really need labels? Well, do we really need subspecies labels? I mean, is it that big of a deal? Does it really matter that we know how there's like 3,000 different kinds of like wolf spider? Well, no, not really. I mean, I don't give a shit when it really comes down to it, but it's...
I love science. It's stupid we have so many labels for damn spiders.
No, it's not stupid, but it's to some people, to some walks of life, that is very important, and that is their life. But, other people, they at least know some things. It's not just spiders, it's wolf spiders, it's this, it's that. And, when we're talking about somebody, like, hey, did you meet Joe the other night? Well, which one's Joe? The big, tall, handsome guy, the big, tall, slender guy. Do we need those definitions? Are we going to live in a world without adjectives? But I think if we're going to continue speaking with adjectives, they might as well, be properly defined and used.
All right. Thanks for listening to This Week on Creating Miah.